All right, guys. Hi. Welcome back to day 3 of week 3, RPS at home, where we're going to continue our study on circles. Okay. So, if you remember yesterday, we derived pi. Okay. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But today, what we're going to do is we're just going to solve problems specifically. We're not going to get into practical problems just yet, but we're going to solve problems. How do we find the circumference in the area of a circle? Okay, so to get into all of that, all right, our opening exercise is this, all right? I want you to brain dump everything you know about circles, okay? So based on what you learned yesterday or whatever and everything that you know about it, right? So here's where you'll pause the video and you'll write those things down. Again, this worksheet is available to you at RPS at home, but if you just got a clean sheet of paper and a pencil, you'll be able to do today's activities as well. Okay, so go ahead and do that. I'll give you some time to brain dump, and then we'll take our discussion further. All right, so assuming you've hit play, you wrote some things down. If you remember yesterday, we talked about a chord, right? A line that touches 2 points of a circle, a diameter, a line that also touches 2 points of a circle, but it goes through the center, and then the radius touches 1 point of the circle, right? And it starts at the center, okay? So we also talked yesterday about uh, um, in our experiment, we derived pi, right? And what was pi? Well, if you look here, we did it by experimentation, and we learned that the circumference is pi times bigger than the diameter, okay? So if you remember, we took our string, right? And we started one place, and this was our start, right? And then it kind of went around, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And then we had that little piece left over. And here's where we learned that the circumference of the circle is about pi times bigger, right? Why was it pi times bigger? Because it was 3 point, a little bit more than 3.14 is what we learned of it. So C is equal to the pi, the circumference is equal to pi times the diameter, right? But if we wanted to solve for the diameter, right? If I wanted to, I'm sorry, for pi, if I wanted to isolate pi, right? Well, what I can do is just divide both sides by the diameter, right? So this cancels, and look what I'm left with. Pi is equal to the circumference to the diameter, right? So pi is the ratio of the circumference to the diameter, okay? We also learned about that yesterday, right? Also, the radius, right? Again, this is R, and the diameter, right, goes through the center, right? That's your diameter, right? And what we learned also is that, well, the radius, or what we connect here is the radius is basically 2 radiuses will give you a diameter, right? And half a radius, right, will give you a diameter. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this a step further. We're going to talk about now how do we calculate those things. So we're just going to practice calculating the area and circumference for a circle, right? And we're going to do that using DRAC charts, okay? So you can probably figure out what the letters stand for. The D is for diameter, the R is for the radius, A is for area, C is for the circumference, right? So what you're going to do is on your paper, you're going to make a little chart. You're going to do 4 columns with the equations, right? The diameter is equal to 2 radiuses, right? The diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. The radius, our second column, is half the diameter, or the diameter divided by 2. Area, right, is a formula we learned about in our last lesson. The area of a circle is pi times the radius squared. Okay, we really don't have time to derive where that comes from, but that's available to you. You can find videos on that how does the area of the circle come about? But we did break down the circumference formula, and circumference, the equation is equal to the pi times the diameter. Okay, now we know pi is equal to 3.14 as well. Okay, so what you're going to do is, okay, you're going to fill in the blanks basically, right? So let's practice this one together, right? So you're going to get a picture of a circle with some dimension. What is this dimension here? This 7, where would I place it, right, in this chart, right? In what box, right? We want to fill in all 4 boxes, right? Well, hopefully you remember that that 7 is the radius, okay? So you would put that under that column, okay? Now, just that one thing we'll be able, just with that one thing, we'll be able to fill in the rest of the blanks. So we'll just go from left to right here, okay? So the diameter equation says that it's equal to 2 times the radius, right? So if I substitute, instead of the letter R, right? Instead of the letter R, I'm going to put the radius, the number for the radius right here. Well, the radius is 7, right? So I'm going to substitute, and I'm going to put the 7 into the equation. And so my diameter is 2 times 7. 2 times 7 is 14, okay? Now, for the area, okay, I want you to use your Desmos calculator to do this, okay? So you should have a tab open, desmos.com/scientific. But in that equation, it says, well, the area, to use the calculator, you're just going to do pi times the radius squared. Okay, we're just, again, substituting, all right, our radius, and we're going to put that in there. So what is our radius, right? Well, we know our radius is 7. So let's use our Desmos calculator to do this, okay? So I'm going to this is my Desmos calculator. I'm going to hit the function button, the FUNC button, and there I have my pi, right? And when I hit pi, look at what happens, 3.141592, right? And it's commonly understood to be 3.14 to the hundredths place. But we're going to take all of this into account, and we're going to multiply, right? So pi times the radius squared. So the radius was 7. And we're going to square it. Here's my squared button, right? And now we see that our area is, we're going to round it to the nearest hundredths, by the way, 153.938. Because of that 8, we're going to round up, right? So it's going to be 153.94, okay? So that is our area. Circumference is a little different. We're going to do pi times the diameter. Okay, so we're going to substitute, all right, and instead of the letter D, we have a blank space there because this number is going to be our diameter. Well, what is our diameter? Here we see our diameter. Our diameter is 14. So you're going to go back to your Desmos calculator, right? We're going to say, well, let me clear this first. Hit my FUNC button, pi times 14, and here we see it's 43.982. So that 8 is going to remain the same. So it's going to be 43.98. Okay, 43.98. All right, one thing to also make note of here is our units, right? Notice this is feet, but area is feet squared, right? We're talking about a space inside of the circle, right? Whereas the circumference is just the distance one time around that circle with a diameter of 14 and a radius of 7, okay? So this is what you're going to be doing, all right, using a sheet of paper, right? It's your turn. So I want you to create a chart, okay? And here are your directions, right? And again, this chart will be available to you at RPS at home. You have a worksheet where you can just fill in the blanks here. But if you don't have that sheet in front of you, you could just make a chart yourself, right? Important that you copy it just as it is. The diameter formula, the radius formula, the area formula, and the circumference formula. All right, and you're going to fill in the blanks here. So for circle number 1, right, I want you to tell me, what is circle number 1 diameter, what's its radius, what's its area, what's its circumference. And when you're done with that, go to number 2. What is its diameter, what's its radius, what's its area, what's its circumference. Okay? And then number 3, what's the diameter, what's the radius, what's the area, and what is the circumference. Okay, so now is where you would pause the video. Okay, and again, make sure you're using the Desmos calculator. All right, and I want you to solve these guys, and then I'll come back on and you'll check your work. All right, so have at it, and I will be back in just a moment. Okay, so you've done the work, right? And now we're going to check our work and we're going to see how well we did. I'm a little curious how I'm going to fill in that last box. Maybe I won't. All right, but so our first picture here, right, for number 1, what does that 9 represent there? Which one of these 4 boxes across the top are we going to fill in? Well, from our last example, it was very similar, right? We know, oh, you can't see that. It is 9 feet, okay? That should have been under the radius, okay? Now, if the radius is 9, well, the diameter is 2 times the radius, right? In other words, it's 2 times 9, right? If we were to substitute here, all right, I'm just going to keep cloning here, right? It is 2 times the radius, which is 9, okay? And what is 2 times 9? Well, 2 times 9 is 18. And again, our dimension is feet. All right, now area is equal to pi times the radius squared. So I'm going to clone it here, and I'm going to substitute pi times what squared? Well, the radius is 9, so it's going to be pi times 9 squared. So let's do that. All right, using our Desmos calculator, I'm going to clear this. All right, pi times 9 squared. Is that right? Yeah, pi times 9 squared. And here we see it's 254.469, so we're going to round it up to 47. 254.47. All right, 254.47. And that would be feet squared, right? 254. Whoop. Let's get rid of that. 254.47. And our units is feet squared, right, to the second power, okay? So that is our area, okay? And then the circumference is pi times the diameter, okay? So it's going to be pi times, well, what's our diameter? Our diameter is what? Well, over here it says it's 18. So we're going to put that into our calculator, pi times 18. So go to our Desmos, clear it, pi times 18. Pi times 18, 56.55, right? Because of that 8 next to it, it's going to round up. So 56.55, right? 56.55, right? And that is feet. So let's make sure we have our units here, 56.55, okay? All right, our next, all right, so we're done with number 1. Our next one, the 22, right? Which of these, it's either going to be the diameter or the radius. That 22 should go under what letter? The D, the R, the A, or the C? Well, it is the diameter, guys. So this is 22 feet. Okay. Now we plug that into our formula for rate to find the radius. Radius is going to be equal to half the diameter, right? In other words, it's the diameter divided by 2. Okay. Our radius is going to be equal to the diameter divided by 2. So if we were to do the diameter, get rid of that. The diameter divided by 2, the diameter divided by 2. That's what half of anything is. It's just dividing it by 2. Well, what is divided by 2? The diameter. The diameter is 18. Well, what is 8? I'm sorry. The diameter is 22, excuse me. So what is 22 divided by 2? Well, 22 divided by 2 is 11. So our radius is 11 feet. Area is going to be pi times the radius squared. All right, so we got to substitute in for the r. What is our radius? Our radius is right here, right? Our radius is 11. So we're going to do pi times 11 squared. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to clear it. Pi times 11 squared. Pi, Desmos calculator, times 11. Here's my squared button. 380.13. Okay, 380.13. Actually, let me just get rid of this. 380.13 is our area. 380.13. Okay, 380.13. And then finally, our circumference is going to be pi times the diameter. Well, what is pi times the diameter? Well, the diameter was 22, so it's going to be pi times 22. So let's get our calculator, Desmos, clear it. Pi times 22, 69.115. So that is going to round up because it is 5, so it's going to be 69.12. Because of the 5 next to it, we're going to round up 69.12. Okay, 69.12. 12 feet. All right, so we're done with our second. All right, last example here. Okay, this 5 here belongs where? Does it belong under the diameter, radius, area, circumference? That 5 is the diameter. Okay, so that belongs in this column. That is 5 feet. Okay, which means the radius is half of that, right? So if half of 22 is 11, half of 5 is what? All right, half, we're just dividing it by 2, right? Whenever you say half, right, what we're talking about is 5 divided by 2. Well, what is 5 divided by 2? If you use the calculator, you'll see it's 2.5. So our radius is 2.5 feet. Area is going to be pi times the radius squared. All right, let's go ahead and pull down our formula here. Pi times the radius squared. Well, what is pi times the radius squared? Our radius is 2.5, correct? So it's pi times 2.5 squared. So let's do it. All right, we're going to clear this. We're going to say pi, let me get the function button. Pi times 2.5. We got to square it, the area, we got to square the radius. And here we see is 19.634. So we're going to leave it at 63 hundredths, 19 and 63 hundredths. 19.63. All right, let me do this here. Actually, let me do this first. No, not that one. Whoops. All right, 19.63. That's what I said. Actually, yeah, 19.63. I'm just going to write it in. 19.63. And then the last guy, circumference is pi times the diameter. In other words, I'm going to write on my face here. Pi times, well, what's the diameter? The diameter is 5. Pi times 5. Okay, so we go to our calculator here. I'm going to say pi times 5. Let me clear this. Pi times the diameter times 5. 15.71. Okay, 15.71. All right, so we had 19.63 here and 15.71 there. And I'm not sure what happened, so I'm going to stop this here. All right. But that's our third lesson, right? 19.63 was the area, and the circumference was 15.71 because this 0 is next to the 7. It's going to round up 1. Okay, so that is our practice on calculating area and circumference of our circles. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll keep this thing going. Tomorrow we'll talk about practical problems, and then in our last one for the week we'll do um, a um, a problem of the day. Okay, so thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow.